bird on a tree. I'm just sitting.
Hi everyone, my name is Monica Ramirez, Warrior of Love, and you're in Soul Talk. And today we have a pleasure to talk with Laron G Smith. He's from New Zealand, and let me tell you a little bit who he is. Laron is in the past life. He's a past life regression hypnotherapist trained by the class of Dolores Cannon, QHHT, and he's an energy healer, out-of-body explorer, and teacher, and a spiritual coach. And again, he's like I mentioned, is from New Zealand. In 2020, he was published as a contributor author on the best in Amazon as the bestseller, Life Wisdom Word Search, Yoga for the Brain, as being the poet and editor. He works in Australian and New Zealand government within IT and technical writing. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's quite a combination, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And well, and Laron, it's really, really my pleasure to have you here, and I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be here and be on your show. Yeah.
Thank you for accepting my invitation to participate in this podcast. Laron, I believe that all human beings we have different awakenings, but the last awakening that we had, or not the last, but one of the last ones we had, it took us where we are now.
Yeah.
And how was your awakening?
So do you mean because of what's going on in the world and astrologically as well?
Many of us we have traumas, divorces, or that's almost died and things like that, and that make us actually realize that we were living in a different reality, and all of us is different stories, and that's why that is
Yeah, yeah.
called awakening.
I'd say the last 18 months, as in the last year and a half, has been the period for me where I've had certain events happen, and that's helped go towards waking me up a bit more. And for me, those events were quite personal. They were related to relationships. So it was basically being put in situations within romantic relationships. Those two I can think of that were bringing up issues I had not dealt with. And of course, for the other person, the same thing's happening. So we're all repeating patterns. So that was the emphasis. And that probably the most difficult time of my life, the last 18 months, because of those two situations, those two relationships. And what it reminded me of was my Saturn return. So, Saturn returns around the age of 28, 29, and that can be really life-changing. So, but because I'd grown and become a lot stronger in character and spirit, I could say it was a bit easier to get through, but still, I was presented and put in a certain situation that was just really, really challenging. And, you get to that point where you might feel you can't do it any longer. It can be that bad, but then you get past it. And then, you've kind of completed the test in a way. But at the same time, I've got to make sure that I'm aware of the pattern and what I need to work on. And for me, I don't mind saying it's probably about codependency. So I knew that I had, we know we've all got issues, but that would be the main thing that keeps coming up for me.
Yes,
Yeah.
we all have our patterns of behaviors that we have to affront, and we're healing all of us at the same time in different levels, and yes, that will be a big one where many people are waking up in relationships.
I think that those experiences helped me to come more into my power. So in addition to pointing out serious issues I still need to deal with, and I've dealt some more with, it's kind of nudged me, pushed me a bit to stand up and maybe be more vocal with my work. For example, doing this interview, which will be my first interview, but also putting myself out there more, as in with the public. Yeah, so that would be a big thing for me as well.
That's a biggie one. I remember when I started coming out. In fact, I only used the name that my guides gave me, Warrior of Love, and I didn't even use my name, nor even my photo,
Yeah.
because I was too afraid and too afraid of the rejection of others, how the people were gonna see me, and so and so. So I hide, and I hide for 2 to 3 years until it was time to come out and say who I really was, and that was a biggie one for many of us.
Yeah.
Uh, we have many names like workers, wage growers, etc., etc. It doesn't matter the name, but it is a biggie one for all of us to actually show who we are and what is one of our passions, as to help others at the same time.
Yeah. So for me, I've kind of reached people through writing. That's been my strength, and I studied a diploma in writing about 5 years ago to increase my skills there and to be able to reach people more effectively. But then I knew I also needed to do more than just that and be more than just a writer. And I kind of felt that calling. Um, I don't know if you've come across the book, The Secret Language of Destiny by Jerry Goldschneider. I think it's Goldschneider and Juice Iffers. They also have the book, The Secret Language of Birthdays, which is more commonly known. So the Destiny book tells you pretty broadly, because it doesn't have your birth time and location, of course, about what you're meant to do in life. And my one's about leadership. So and that makes sense. Like I can kind of see the challenges I've had to get through. And I have done a lot of leading, but in quite a different way, not so much in person as in on the work front, but more online, leading large groups and communities.
Yes, I've been seeing your posts, and they're very, very interesting. That I recommend everybody to actually look for Laron, because they're very, very inspiring. They're very to the point, and they're very, very helpful. And hey, you're a writer, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And I am a Spanish poet. My first language is Spanish, and I have that difficulty to express myself in a language that is not mine. And but there's a big advantage that you have in there, and I'm glad that you're using it, because people actually need it in this time.
Yeah, and I think with my background, which is in IT, when I was about 2021, I got into IT full time. That's kind of a strange background to come from, into the world of spirituality and metaphysics, because it's very left-brained. And it's quite different. But then some people do come from that direction. But one thing I noticed I've felt is that it was hard for me to, you could say, step out of the closet or be myself more, because I always judged myself from having that background. I always thought, how can I succeed with, helping people in this way that we do now, when I've got a background like that? So that, for some reason, that was a block, and I got past that. Maybe not 100% yet, but I'm just about there, I think. But yeah.
And it's a big step that you did from a job security that you have for the government of New Zealand, and IT that is established. You have a steady paycheck. And that's an argument that I have sometimes with some friends, that they always tell me, "Oh, but I have a secure paycheck and you don't." Yes, it is scary to give that step and let go a secure paycheck for our passion. How was for you?
Yeah, so in 2013, I had to decide. I had this really strong urge to leave a 10-year career in IT, or it was about 12 years actually. I was working in a government agency in New South Wales and Sydney at the time, and I was earning just about 100,000 Australian. So it was a big decision. And it was the typical things you have in the corporate world, as in the politics, the people that are still stuck in the past with their understandings and belief systems and upbringing. It's just really hard to deal with in that environment. So that was a big part of the reason. And at the same time, I was stepping more into the healing work. So, and a combination of things really kind of helped me get out of that. But then over the years, I did return to IT more recently, and I got into writing. So I got into technical writing, but I feel it's just about time to probably not return to that world, and then I can focus on all my client work. Yeah.
And this is scary at the same time. I say it for me myself. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, I should look for a job, maybe. I'm not saying that this is a job. This is my passion. This is my love. This is what I do for love.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can get hard. It can get hard, and more when you're still working with your own issues of scarcity. That's all of us. We still have some levels and grades of scarcity. And do you still have that?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean there. It's like, but I think it's also related to confidence. If you don't have the confidence, you'll go back to what you know is secure, what propped you up and brings you that foundation of job security. But when you develop the confidence and the knowledge, you know you can do it. And it's also about manifestation. If you really want to do it, you can make it work if you're using all the techniques of manifestation.
Yes, that is true. And what make you study the QHHT?
So probably a long story. So that was about 2011. It was actually my mom. She introduced me to Dolores because she had read her books,
Beautiful.
and she was very passionate about the material and what Dolores talked about. And at the time, I had studied Reiki. I'd become a Reiki master. I was doing a 1.5 year part-time diploma in energetic healing. And I kind of felt that to complement that, I needed past life regression because there's some issues that do connect back into the past. And it's not something you can just 100% of the time resolve with healing, with energy healing, whatever form you use. So the one I came across was Dolores because my mum introduced me. And I went to a couple of talks. So Dolores came to Sydney, did some talks, and did a group regression as well. That was interesting. And then I heard that she's coming to Melbourne to do the training. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. It was a big decision. At that point in time, I hadn't done a lot of training. It was kind of getting into that world. And yeah, I went to Melbourne, stayed there just about a week, did all her levels of training. So I learned everything she had to teach, and got into it slowly, gradually. And yeah, here I am today.
Yes, I have the pleasure to take BQH with Candace Crawford. She was one of the students of Dolores.
Yep.
And it is it's similar but different at the same time.
Yep.
Yes, but it is very passionate, and I do agree with you. A lot of our issues comes from our past, the imprints that we have, and talking with the future self or the higher self, how I call it, is really magnificent.
And it's not just about the issues you have, such as health issues, psychological issues, questions you may want answers to. You can find out things that you wouldn't even think of answering. And the sessions are really guided by your higher self. So you'll get out of it what you need. You may get your intentions that you come to the session covered and answered, but you can have a surprise and have an experience, whether it's a life on Earth or elsewhere, that still relates to your life and still is important to see. And if you share that with others, it depends if it's something you want to keep to yourself, that can kind of open up their world as well, which is what Dolores did with all her books.
I have a question. Can you do it online? Oh, because I know that was one of the limitations that had the class QHHT, from the difference from BQH, that they couldn't do it online. Now can you do it online?
That's still a rule that they teach when with the training. So I understand that they're showing videos of Dolores doing a training, which is really good, because then they can keep it really authentic. So officially, no, you're not meant to do it online. But basically, all the practitioners I know do it online. My mentor, who's been doing it for about 10 years, has been doing it online for about 10 years. And there's lots of different past life regression methods, and many people do it online. It's just something, I think the rule is really there because Dolores grew up in a time when technology was very different, and also no internet as well. But what I've found is that it's exactly the same experience. And personally, I find people are more comfortable in their home. So it's quite interesting because the sessions can be even more successful because of that comfortableness. Yeah.
And something that Dolores not saw, it was that we're gonna be in a pandemic, that we were gonna be in lockdown, and that was the only way we can actually see people.
That's
So
true. Yeah. Have you heard of Mary Rodwell?
yes, yes.
So yeah, she's got some great books out, and she uses a certain method. I don't know if she teaches that method, but she also does sessions online. And one of my sisters had a session with her, and that she had a lot of success with that session. That was good.
Yes, I had the pleasure to talk with her, and we couldn't for a regression, in fact, for me, because I was an adoptee too,
Yeah.
and that's why I did talk with her about that.
Yeah, I've had a few clients. It's interesting how practitioners get a pattern of clients. So then there might be a focus on volunteers like Dolores had, or abductees, or people that are regulars to Earth. It's quite interesting.
Have you? Well, what's her name? I forgot. She became very famous in one of in the QHHT. Oh my God!
You talking about Alison Cole?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
She had.
Yeah, so I think she was one of the original people to start sharing her videos online, and um, that helped her get the numbers and get quite well known for her work. Yeah.
Yes. Have you have a sessions like that? Like there's something very interesting in your sessions?
Yes, so most of my sessions are like that. So what I've been doing is transcribing them. So I've got a page where I maintain links to all my transcribed sessions. But recently I started sharing online. So I've got a YouTube channel up now. Yeah.
Yes. Can you share with us? Just tiny, obviously not the whole thing because it's long.
What, you mean the channel or one of the sessions or?
Something that it caught your attention that is like, oh, this is very interesting what I just heard.
There's a recent one that I just got permission to share, as long as I keep the person anonymous.
Yes.
So he first found himself on this moon. So it wasn't a moon to Earth, and it was basically Space Force. He was in the Space Force. And it started off quite interesting. He knew that I was going to connect. When I say he, I'm talking about, I'll just say the avatar of the client who's on this moon knew that I was going to connect the client into the session, and he had walked away from his camp. He was a commander of a few hundred soldiers, if that's the right word for people in space. And he was there because this moon was a seed moon. So it's a moon that not just the humans go to, but other ET species to get seeds. And when I say seeds, I'm not talking about like life forms, but kind of like the gardening sense, which was kind of interesting. And while he was there, an Arcturian came down in a spaceship, and this ship was kind of like a not so physical. It could phase in and out, and he was trying to describe that at the time. And this Arcturian was actually a friend of his, and he hadn't seen him for like 20 years. A female Arcturian, and they were talking about some important things and talking about the seed planet, and there was a few other scenes, and the most important scene would be the end one. So he was able to observe. So it wasn't just about lives or experiences. He could go a bit like remote viewing, go somewhere with his consciousness in a spherical form and observe what was taking place. So there's this battle taking place out in space, center of the galaxy, and he just couldn't understand what was going on there, because there was the words he used was Star Trek on steroids, or was it Star Wars on steroids? One of the two. That's how dramatic the scene was. So to work it out, I took him back and forwards in time, and it started out as two reptilian ships meeting, and there was a third ship, a Palladian ship, which was kind of gold colored, which was overseeing or mitigating the meeting. And the reptilians were splitting off. There was a smaller group that decided that they didn't like the old ways of doing things. They were kind of the more positive side, as in the good side. But the other group wasn't supportive of this, and this caused a big war. And because of how time works, this is taking place over thousands of years back on Earth time, which is really hard to understand. But that battle is meant to finish in about 2 years. And I think that fits into what's going on in the world right now with the what I call the pandemic. So there were these two sides, and there were other ET races that joined in the battle. And there were groups within, say, a single race that could be on both sides, because, of duality, there's good and bad, and we've all made choices to do different things. And in the end, the battle was won by the good side, but there was a percentage given, like only by 2% they were successful. And I think that fits in back into what's going on Earth during this period of time for us. We will be successful in the end.
That's something that I do feel. I have heard that not all the reptilians, and I feel it also, that not all the reptilians are bad, like not all the Pleiadians are good. And it's like all the races, like not all human beings are bad, not all human beings are good, neither.
Yeah, that's right. So I've come across with other clients, there's been reptilian past lives, and that's what I've found. They're mostly not bad. So it's a group of reptilians doing something quite interesting, and it's got nothing to do with what is commonly thought of them. So yeah.
Yeah, they can find that information in your YouTube channel.
With my videos, I've got a video description, and I do include a link to the transcribed sessions in there. But one of the videos I've got up now, oh, sorry, and I haven't put that video up yet, but it'll be the next one I do. Yeah, so it should be released within a few weeks.
Yes, I do agree. And then we have someone asking if there are lives in other planets and universe. There's always, I remember this movie that is Contact, that I don't know if you remember the movie Contact.
That's one of my favorite movies, like top 10 movies. I love that one.
And I remember that phrase that says it would be a waste of space if there was no life in another planets or universe or dimensions or timeline.
Yeah, I think she says that at the end of it as well. Yeah.
Right? It will be really a waste of space, and it will be too egocentric at the same time for human beings to be the only beings in the universe.
Yeah. So yeah, there's been quite a few clients with lives on other planets, and as we find, this is the case with everyone that's doing this work. But they share this information in their books or on YouTube or in their written accounts. And I think that's, that's one of the things that really opened people's mind with Dolores's books originally, when they realize it's not just about Earth, there's things going on elsewhere in the universe, but also beyond that, in other dimensions, there's things going on. And that is even more interesting, I find, because the rules and laws of how life functions is just completely different, because it's a different environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with you in that way. I wanted to ask you, have I been receiving more? Well, let me just go back in my thoughts. In as you mentioned that you were a poet, and then you became a healer and so forth. My own experience as a poet, I've been writing since I was 14 years old, my poetry and so forth. I did not realize that I was channeling all my poetry, that it was not actually my poetry, it was channel messages.
Yeah.
And are you a channeler too?
So I'd say yes. So when it depends on what I'm writing about or what the topic is about. So with the poetry, you can get very analytical with it. So that can kind of block a flow. It depends how you're writing it. But for example, if you just write it all out, poetry can take months to do just one poem. If you're writing it all out, you can then go back and perfect it. But that first time you write it out, you can connect into that stream of consciousness and channel that in a way. But what I've found is that because I've written a lot of spiritual related articles over the years, and when I do that, that's when I feel that I'm channeling some information in, but not in the sense of connecting into a lower down being, perhaps could be an ET or a guide, but more higher self is my feeling. So it's coming from my higher self, really, really up high, when I do connect and grab that information. And it's similar to how, the psychic ability, claircognizance, that knowing, it's similar to how I feel that works. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. Some of my poetry is from my higher self, another one is from some of my guides that I do have. I can, of course, I write now at different kinds of writing, not only poetry, but that's how I discovered that I was a channeler. When I finally encountered with that, like, oh, this is the same words in the same style. Like, oh, that's not me. It was,
Yeah, you surprise yourself, don't you? Like if you read back on something, you can kind of know, yeah, that wasn't what I had in my head.
yes. And I've been lately hearing more and more information about walk-ins in this moment. They're coming in. What do you have heard about that through your clients or through your own higher self?
So that topic hasn't come up recently with my clients, but in one of those relationships I mentioned earlier, uh, she was quite a powerful psychic, and she gave me a lot of information. And she there was, how should I say this? She picked up on when I went to Peru back in 2011, and there's a portal there in the side of a rock. I'm sure everyone knows the place I'm talking about because it's kind of popular. And she picked up that while I was there, I had a walk-in come in, and that kind of makes sense. But it wasn't a walk-in, because there's different types. It wasn't a walk-in that replaces you. It was a walk-in that joins you on your journey, and it kind of helps you with your quest or your mission or what you plan to set out to do in this life. And that was quite an interesting kind of a validation or confirmation. But yeah, I'd like to hear a bit from you. What has come up recently in relation to it?
I don't think I am a walk-in after trying to investigate that, because I for a moment I did I have my last awakening was like very abrupt, and it was life changing completely, in health wise, in every single way. But I started when I started investigating about it, and that's when I started receiving messages about that. And yes, I do have received many messages about that right now, because the time where we are at in the planet wise, there are many walk-ins. Many people are deciding to leave, and for being scared, or they're tired, or whatever reason, and they did these contracts before they came over here with these beings, because many people ask me, like, oh, it's like I got possessed. I'm like, no, you don't got possessed.
Yeah.
You decide to leave. Well, that person decided to leave, and but the mission was not finished, and it was important to finish that mission. That's why they did that contract, soul to soul, with a walk-in, to finish
Yeah.
the work that we're needing to finish.
Yeah, that makes sense. That resonates with me. I also remember that one of my sisters, Dawn, who does similar work to me, and she's published, she once told me that she thought a walk-in had came in, and this was years ago. And that was kind of interesting, because at the time I just didn't understand what that really meant. And I also had this impression that a walk-in replaces you entirely, and that was the only way a walk-in does it. And I think I learned that from Lobsam Rampa, who's meant to be a walk-in, a Tibetan monk that was walked into this Englishman, and that kind of told me, or showed me that, well, is that the only way it works? But then, yeah, I've learned a lot more about it, and how it can just be an additional soul that's beside you on your journey. But yeah, I find that quite interesting, that because your soul contract is so important, that someone needs to replace you if you're going to check out. So yeah, that's really neat. Yeah.
Dumbalo Melchizedek is a walk-in. You know who he is, right?
Who was that?
Dumbalo Melchizedek.
Oh, I can't, the last name I think I know. No, I don't think I knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a walk-in.
Well, that's
He tried
interesting.
to, and he talks in several of his books actually about it, that he decided to leave, and he had a contract already with his soul, and this is the soul that is teaching about all these teachings about the Merkaba and this and that. Or it's very, 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 very interesting.
I remember that Dolores Cannon said that we would have to make a choice during the new Earth shift. And this also came up with some of my early past life regression sessions. And recently, I kind of felt that that choice may actually be connected into the vaccination situation. Um, as in, if you stay or if you go, sort of thing, as the Earth splits with the higher vibrational Earth and the lower vibrational Earth. And I think that may also connect into the walk-in situation, because people are deciding that they can't handle it; it's too much. And yeah, that's kind of interesting.
It is funny. What I believe, I'm not, I'm not saying that I am the authority or I have all the knowledge of everything, because I don't. I don't think it's the we knew we were gonna be divided before even it happened. The vaccine is being the one that is causing the division,
Mm,
and worldwide. And there's too many fears about putting it or not putting it. And I'm not pro or against.
yeah,
It's the choice of each one of us to put it or not. But there's been many people that shun other people because they have put it, or shun people because they haven't put it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And but I believe the choice of being here or not, it is the people that they're tired. Many people are already tired. They have suffered so many lifetimes, including this one, so many things, and they just are tired. And that's the soul contract when they do before they come here. Say, okay, if I can't do it anymore, can you just jump in and finish the mission that I have? But that doesn't have to do too much with the vaccine. It has to do more with the fear if they're gonna die, or if the lockdowns, or
yeah.
fears about governments, or whatever it is.
That reminds me of something. So you know about volunteer souls. So you've got the regular souls that have many lives on Earth, and then you've got the volunteers that come in to help with the transition that's going on now. In one of my sessions, a scene came up with the client was a volunteer, and there was different types of ETs like Pleiadians, and he was there, and they were being taught how they needed to grab scenes and events from the lives of souls who had actually suicided to show those souls that you can actually complete the life by going through it in this life that they come into. But the other reason for that was that they needed really challenging experiences to help them grow in vibration and to rise up during, I'd say that this time period right now is a really good example of why people have had such challenging times in the past. And that means that a lot of volunteers, go through some really hard times throughout their lives to build them up so their vibration is higher. And that vibration helps other people without them even having to do anything.
Yes, I do agree with that. We need to raise our vibration so like that we can let go of the fear and all the limitations that we have.
Yeah, and a recent regression session said that, if you've had the vaccine and you're having some health issues, that if you hold a high vibration, if you stay positive, along with whatever else you do, such as taking certain supplements or recommended health protocols, you can get past that and you'll be fine. So I think that's really important information for people to know that, if you're thinking negatively or if you've read this or read that, you just need to hold that high vibration and keep looking forward and be positive.
Yeah, or the people that have put the vaccine, you put the vaccine, that doesn't mean your DNA is gonna change or you're gonna get a magnet in your arm. That's one of the things that I have heard that is very ridiculous. But well, um, like I say, I'm not an authority and I am not a scientist and I am not a doctor.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything. Like many of us, we just opinion about everything. And the people forget that giving an advice is not an order.
Mm,
And that's something that people forget all the time.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I saw that in your bio that you help in the book. What is the yoga for your brain? What is that about?
Okay, so there's a primary author that puts it together, and she has, it's kind of like you could think of it as a crossword in a way. So there's different sections, and each crossword has a passage or a teaching from someone like me. So I was invited to write one that related to a specific crossword, and my passage or teaching was about basically going through hard times and kind of shedding like the caterpillar, the transformation that caterpillar goes by into the butterfly, and how those challenges can really change us and help us grow and transform spiritually and vibrationally. So that was included in the book, and there's lots of contributing writers, and there's an edition put out each year, and this just happened to be last year's one. So yeah, that was probably, that was my first time being published. I've got some book ideas in the works. The first one will probably be some transcripts and parts of my regression sessions, which I'm planning at the moment. Yeah.
That is good. Let us know when it comes out. I would love to read them.
I will, yeah.
And I did not got your information, but I will add it as soon as you give it to me.
Sure, yeah.
The description box so like that people can go and visit your YouTube channel.
Yeah, sure.
Like
I'll
that,
make a note.
so like that I can and share it with everybody. So like that they can share it because it is very very interesting to hear about the regressions. I understand what we're talking about because we do kind of the same kind of line of work, but many people have never had a regression. Many of our spectators have never had a regression or this kind of experience. Can you kind of explain it, how do you work
Yeah.
with a client?
So people get caught up on the hypnosis side. So with the method I use, it's got the word hypnosis in the title, but basically it's like a guided meditation. So everyone's familiar with going through a guided meditation. They'll listen to instructions, they'll close their eyes and they'll relax, and they'll be told to visualize and create a space, such as it could be a garden. They may be taken downstairs. That's quite common. You've taken downstairs, and that's kind of like the point of that is to go deeper, to relax, go deeper, and basically move forward to a destination. And that destination, it could be a garden or anything. So it's a combination of visualization and being guided to a place, and then being open to receiving information. So there's some commands or instructions that I tell the client, and then all of a sudden, instead of them creating the scene, visualizing the scene, they'll just start seeing things, and those things are real, and normally it's a past life. So they may suddenly find themselves, one of the first things I'll ask is, what are you wearing on your feet? Because that can establish who the person is, if they're in a physical body or not, because they're not always in a physical body. They can just be just present or looking in on a scene because there might be a reason that they need to see that experience. So that's one way to describe it. Have you got any questions around that?
Yeah, I do. I remember I had a client that she was a horse. In fact, in one of her past lives. That was very interesting.
So I've had clients be quite a few things, including a sun, a star, an ant. I think there was a horse, and there was atmosphere. That was really neat, being like part of the life that was, or what was supporting the life on a planet. But I think the most interesting one was an ice molecule. So the client came in, and it was really hard to establish what it was, because you have to ask the right questions, because the questions help the scene develop. And you've got to be really careful not to lead, because if you lead, that can influence how it moves forward. So this water molecule, ice molecule, was melting, becoming water. It was part of an iceberg on the side of this island, and there was a volcano erupting, and the volcano was causing the heat and causing the ice to melt. And the experience was that as this water molecule, a bee came along, and it got attached to the bee, and the bee flew off over the island. And then we could see what was going on with the volcano. It was really one of the more interesting sessions. And what happened then? I think that the water molecule like dropped off the bee onto a flower, and yeah, it was really quite interesting. And it was explained why. You might think, what's the point of this? This is really weird. How does this relate to anything? So it was actually explained why that was going on, which I can't actually remember now because this was years ago. But that person had a really strong connection to plants, and I think that tied into it somehow. So she's into using like herbal remedies and essential oils as well. Yeah.
That sounds very interesting. And the other part that, well, that's the past life. And then you can talk with your future self or your higher self, right?
Yeah. So with the method I use, the really important part of it is bringing in the higher self. And at that point, the person goes into a trance state. But it's really about letting yourself, move to the side and letting the answer to the questions I ask come through you. And you end up talking about yourself. So it's really it's really you talking but there's two yous really. And so you've got to get out of the way to let that happen. And that's when you get the answers. That's basically what we're talking about before, the stream of consciousness, the channeling. But I don't see it as typical channeling. I see it kind of separate to that. And that's when you get the accurate answers to any questions you have. And that's also when healing can take place, in addition to the healing that takes place from simply seeing an event in the past, because that can be very healing in itself. So the experience of healing can be explained at that time as something is targeted. So I might ask, why does the person have a sore knee, and how does that relate to that past life, and so on. And then the client can feel like energy moving around and things happening when the healing takes place, depending on how the session goes and what I ask. But yeah, that's the higher self part.
Yes, it is very fascinating, that part too. Oh gosh.
Well, something else that comes to mind is that sometimes clients will get future lives. But not just future lives as in another life, like a past life, but in the future, but future scenes. So they may see what they're doing in their current life. And I've had that happen a few times. So that can help them with manifestation, and it can help them get confidence around what they want to achieve, but also bring in, kind of cheating in a way, bring in ideas to help them move ahead with what they were planning to do. So yeah, it's quite a powerful technique, and many different things can happen.
Yes, yes, it is fascinating. I love it. I love that technique. I have taken many classes, NLP, etc., multidimensional healing, etc. But one of the ones that I'm more passionate is those two. And I am a Reiki master, but I don't even use it anymore. I use more NLP and hypnotherapy.
Yeah, I'm a Reiki master as well, and what I found is that Reiki can kind of limit you if you stick with it. You kind of need to move beyond that. And what's really important is developing the intuition. So when you do energy healing, I call it energy healing because it's really all about energy, that you just let go. You may have certain techniques that you were taught to use, but if you let go when you're doing it, you'll start seeing things that you're doing kind of outside of your body. That's how I find it. So, I may be seeing myself sending healing, but then another part of me will be, or helpers will be doing certain things, and that can be quite interesting.
Yes, I do agree with you in that too. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a good question. Okay, so I've always wanted to start doing workshops in person and touch more on spiritual teachings. So I've recently put together like a plan for courses, online courses, but then I felt that this may be better done as a book. And then I felt maybe I'd move these into in-person classes, but then, COVID came along, and you're not doing much in person anymore. So that kind of destroyed that idea. But in 5 years' time, I think I'd be doing more speaking like this. I may even be hosting interviews like this. I think it's a good thing to do as you connect more people with each other. And I'll maybe get you on the show at that time. Yeah. And I always felt, I've had this feeling that I'm meant to be doing something more unique, something new that I haven't discovered yet. So it probably, I'll probably would have moved beyond the past life regression to something else, but I can't say what that is. But I get a sense that it's something really important that I'll do eventually, as well as continuing to teach people in the various ways that I do.
Maybe create a new program. I created a new program for transformation, and I don't know, maybe create your own signature program.
Yeah, I'm quite passionate about out of body experiences and teaching people that, but I find it hard to get people interested in it because they just don't understand the benefit. And it does take a lot of time. You've got to dedicate a lot of time to practicing the techniques to get you there. But there's different ways to induce it. So I always thought that maybe I would come across something that would make it a new technology that would make it a lot easier, and then I could work with that or do something like that.
There are so many techniques that are very similar, like theta healing, etc. They go in theta level, and it's faster than VQH or QHD.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard some things about it, yeah. And that's what people are wanting. They want to get the quicker results these days.
Yeah, people don't want to do the work, unfortunately. You give them the homework and they don't do it. They don't want to do it.
Yeah, and I think social media can be a little bit to blame for that, and especially places like Facebook where everything's just happening all in the one place.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. But also at the same time, I thank to the technology, because or else we will not be having this interview. It will be,
Yeah.
I will have to travel to New Zealand or things like that so we can have this interview. And
And get stuck in 2 weeks quarantine. Yeah.
yes, I do have many friends. My teacher from NLP, she is in New Zealand, in Hamilton.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
That I adore. I adore. She's beautiful. I have
Yeah.
soul sisters over there. Let's put it like that. And thanks to the internet, it opened up the doors worldwide. You don't feel it like that as a in your practice?
No, I agree with that. You know, technology can limit us, but then at the same time, you've just demonstrated how it can help us. I think, as you mentioned before, the movie Contact. I think that came up in that movie. So it's interesting we're talking about that. Yeah, so yeah, I don't have anything against it, but when I was growing up, I was quite passionate about computers. So like I was about 8 years old. I had my first computer, an IBM 80286, a monochrome screen, and I was teaching myself DOS, and I got right into PC games and some consoles, and right now I've moved beyond that, of course, but I can see, the effectiveness of technology thanks to that.
Well, everything has two sides. We live in a duality in a world that it can be for good. Even love, it can be intoxicating or it can be the more beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah, that's right. Intoxicating and then toxic. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Well, do you have something else that you would like to add, Aaron? Laron, sorry.
No, I think that's everything. I really like your questions, and they made me think, and they made me talk about things that are really important, but also remind me of probably things I need to um, go over again and attend to, and so it's good for me and it's good for everybody else.
It was really my pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for accepting.
Thanks for inviting me, and it was great to talk to you and get to know you a bit more.
Yes, yes, and I love to read your post. I love to read your post. Sometimes they just make my day.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for saying it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And let me announce what we're going to have the next week. I have two podcasts. The other podcast is called Heart of the Artist Talk. And the next week we have on Sunday, that is when is the Heart of the Artist Talk, we have Edna Ochoa. She's a professor, writer, actor, screenwriter, and poet. And that podcast is at 6 o'clock Central Time. And the next Monday, August 30, in Soul Talk, we have Crystal Lynn Blackmore. She's a Reiki practitioner, light language channel, and more. And right now I'm having opening for coaching spaces. If you want more information, just contact me. And remember, this podcast survived thanks to your donations, and the PayPal link is on the description, and I will be adding the information of Laron, so like that you all can get a hold on him and check his YouTube channel and contact him for if you want any more information that he have. Thank you, Laron. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And those upcoming shows sound really good. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy that.
Yes. Thank you so
Okay.
much. We should,
All right.
we should repeat it later on.
Okay. See you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see from up here.